Hi, Katie. I'm so glad that you reached out to me about this. My students absolutely loved writing innovations, and this is really going to meet the writing standard of writing a narrative with two or more properly sequenced events. It's also such a great way to build your students' creativity. And I think your teacher will find that once she opens the door to innovations, students are going to be writing them during free choice or daily five time or at her writing center, probably for the rest of the year. Our friend Sana, a few years ago, when we were teaching about the three bears, she did the three little fishies and the big bad shark, and I will just never forget her creativity when she wrote, not by the scales on my finny thin fin. These sort of lessons really are just so wonderful for kids. They just let them have a chance to become writers. So this is how I teach it. You'll see here on the screen that this is the template I'll be using. The first thing I have students do is pick their setting. For example, where is the mitten going to get lost? I usually like to model my writing too, and so I'll be writing it on large chart paper, and I do sort of a catch and release model. So first I think aloud for them about how I'm going to choose my setting. And whatever setting I choose, I'm not going to let them choose. So for example, today I'm going to choose Bikini Bottom as my setting. Now I need to think what characters would make sense there. So the characters in Bikini Bottom that are going to make sense are going to be SpongeBob, Mr. Krabs, and I'm going to need a small character as the last one. So I think I'm going to choose Plankton. Next, I'm going to also have to think about maybe a mitten doesn't make sense under the sea, so what could have been lost that the characters are going to climb into? And so I think actually my characters are going to go into SpongeBob's pineapple. That's going to be the item that's going to expand. So then I'm going to have students go and pick their setting and characters. After a few moments, we'll call them back to the rug when they're ready, and I'll model writing the story beginning. Now here, SpongeBob's going to need to lose his pineapple. So here I'm going to write Once Upon a Time and write about how SpongeBob loses the pineapple. I'm going to model for them how to write details as well. Then I'll let them know that after they finish their writing, then is the time for them to illustrate here. And that way your writers who are finished are going to be able to spill the rest of their time illustrating that section of the story. And I'm also going to be modeling using transition words and using more information. And I'm going to be modeling using my room resources, like my Quick Words book, to spell correctly. So this is a chance really to take your writers where you want them to go. Now, I'm going to give students time. Here's the release, back to their seats. I'm going to be helping those struggling writers and maybe checking in with some others as well to push them to go farther. I'll play a transition song as most friends are finishing up and illustrating, and we'll come back. Now I'm going to model the middle of the story where the characters are going to go into SpongeBob's pineapple. And I'm going to need to give them a reason. So maybe it's cold in the sea today, and so they want to go into the pineapple where it's nice and warm. And again, I'm going to model all those practices of good writers for them. Catch and release, they'll have a chance to go right their middle. They'll come back and we'll talk about the story ending. So in the story ending, the pineapple will explode and fly up into the ocean. And then it'll drift down and SpongeBob's going to find it. And so I'm going to want to model using those elements of the story for them as I write and model my own. Well, I hope this helps you understand how this is going to work in the classroom for me with the catch and release model for writing. This is a great lesson too where I'm probably the next day in small groups. I'm going to meet with my groups and have them bring their story. That's going to give them time to share their story with other members of their group. And then other members of the group can sort of peer at it and ask them, how do we think we could improve one another's work? I really love doing writing instruction in small groups as opposed to a whole group or even a catch and release, because it really allows you to be responsive to what each group needs. And you'll see with your students that your enrichment and scaffolding groups are going to be at a much different place than your acceleration groups if you have them. After this lesson, I'm also going to put copies of this template into our writing center in the room, and I guarantee you that throughout the coming weeks, my students will write so many other versions of the mitten. Then when we hit the gingerbread stories as well, they're going to be writing versions of gingerbread. So I'm going to put a second template in there for them to write their own version of the gingerbread. If you have any other questions, feel free to write to me. I think you will find, though, your students not only are going to love this opportunity to be creative, but they're going to be so enthusiastic about the idea that they now get to be a part of the change that folktales have gone through over the years. Best wishes and happy holidays.